Hello and a very warm welcome back to Tim Roadie Drive Stuff. I'm Tim, and the stuff what I'm driving today is the new Kia Niro. This is much like your favorite specialist adult internet videos. It kind of smushes three things into one. It's a plug-in hybrid, it's a full EV, and it's a self-charging hybrid. You can pick whichever one you want, and Kia reckons it is one of the most affordable ways to get some electrification into your daily driver. I just want to know, is it any good? So I've come to Germany to find out. So here it is then, the all-new Niro. The Niro's been pretty successful since it launched, whenever it was, several years ago. They've sold something like 350,000 of them in Europe. Half of them were hybrids, a third were EVs, and only 15% were PHEVs. This new one is just more advanced. Before we begin, if you've never seen a Niro, you might think, how big is it? It's a bit smaller than a Kia Sportage, Sportage, however you want to say that. Someone will tell me I'm saying it wrong in the comments. And I guess it's a rival for the Volkswagen ID3, say Ateca, and all that kind of conventional stuff. The cheapest version of this new one is more expensive than the previous Niro by a fair bit. It's £27,745. And that's a self-charging hybrid in entry level 2 trim. There's 2 trim, 3 trim and 4 trim. 4 is the top spec one. The PHEV is £33,000 and the EV starts at 35 grand up to £41,000 for a 4 spec one. You're still with me, it's a little bit confusing. And amusingly, in the press bump, Kia points out that in Europe it's the second biggest manufacturer of EVs behind Tesla. But anyway, let's talk about the looks of it, because it looks a bit like the new Sportage in that it's got this new kind of tiger nosy but squished grille. Kia calls it tiger nose. It's worth noting that their design ethos is called Opposites United, which sounds like a football team, and it's underpinned by a design pillar called Joy for Reason, which sounds like a Labour camp to me. But anyway, even entry-level versions of this get LED headlights, and the EV obviously has a charging flap, but it's under the nose and it's not spring-loaded. You kind of have to bop it, then kind of whip it open, and then look at that. Excuse the traffic noise. It has got a CCS connector. It charges at 72 kilowatts, so you can charge this from empty, no, not from empty, fucking hell, 10% to 80% in about 45 minutes, so it's not the fastest charging thing. A Kia EV6 charges much faster than this, but again, this is a more affordable car. But anyway, sorry, we were talking about the looks. The free colour for this in the UK is bright orange, which is pretty cool. However, like the EV6, it has got a vehicle to load adapter, so you can boil kettles and do silly things like that for YouTube. The PHEV gets a flap on the side to charge it, not really sure why it's there. It's worth noting that for the EV, the batteries are actually all the way under the floor, but for the hybrids, they're under the back seats. So when we get to boot space, we'll talk about some of the differences there. And yes, I'm gonna drive all three in this video to tell you what the differences are. Parked next to the motorway apparently. Now it is bigger than the previous generation of the Niro, so it's 25mm wider, 65mm longer and 20mm higher. And from the side it's still got that slightly SUV but not really very much an SUV. It's quite a low thing. You get this side blade which everyone is talking about and saying, oh, that's from an Audi R8, a Gen 1 R8. And it has got an aero function. There's a little hole through there. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it. Might have to put a cutaway in, but there you go, there's daylight through there. I think the tail lights have been robbed from an XC40, to be honest. And these side blades come in different colours as well. There's something like 32 different colour combinations on this car, which is quite a lot for a regular car. In terms of wheel sizes, you get 17s on the EVs, and the PHEV and the HEV, you can choose between 16s and 18s. The body in white is 20 kilos lighter than before, but it's still 1.75 tons pretty much as the EV. You do get radars on the rear corners underneath here, so you do get a warning when someone's driving up behind you inside. There's also lots of safety stuff which I'll get onto, but basically it can stop your passengers opening doors into oncoming cars, all that kind of stuff, to keep your Niro pristine. Now, a reversing camera is standard on all versions. It's really sharp, it's really clear. This one is a little bit wet and muddy because I've been driving it in the wet and mud. Let's look at the boot. It beeps because it's a Korean car. By law, they have to beep. Actually, before we get into the boot, do you want to know a fun fact about this? It doesn't have a reverse gear. It uses the electric motor to reverse, and by dumping the reverse gear in the gearbox, it's a 6-speed DCT, they've saved 2.3 kilos. Now, you might be looking in there and thinking, That's not that huge. Well, it's about 475 litres. Well, it's exactly 475 litres in the EV, and there's a 20 litre frunk on this as well. The hybrid only gets 450 litres. The PHEV loses 100 litres, so it's only 350. See this, if it's not too dark, you can see there's a massive great space there for other stuff on top of all your gubbins that comes with the car. And you've got some little hooks there, top tether points for seats. It's pretty Spartan, to be honest. You can't fold the seats down remotely using levers. You have to reach over and use little switches there. It's not a hardship. Parcel shelf is a nice flimsy bit of fabric, and I like that because you can either fold it up or you can just stuff it on the boot floor and put stuff on top of it. You don't have to find an extra room in your house to store your parcel shelf. But anyway, let's talk about the drivetrains. Right, quick bit of numbers chat. The drivetrains, you can get this as a hybrid, which has a 1.6 litre petrol with a 40 horsepower electric motor for 140 horsepower total. The plug-in hybrid adds a more powerful motor, so it's got 180 horsepower in total with an 80 horsepower electric motor, can go 40 miles on electric power. This, the full electric, 201 horsepower, one motor, it can go 275 miles on a charge. You can tow with the Niro, it's 1.3 tons for the hybrid, and for the plug-in hybrid, this can do 750 kilograms. I think I've managed to do that. Did I get that right? The PHEV and the hybrid can turn off their engines when you drive past schools and enter other green zones on the sat-nav, which you can set up yourself. I'm pretty sure that's the level in Sonic. But anyway, enough waffle, let's look inside the car. I'm finally in the peace and quiet away from the noisy road outside. But yeah, for a car that's named after a murderous Roman emperor who liked to sleep with his mum and then killed her, this is pretty nice. It's got some nice trims up front in there. It all feels pretty cool, to be honest. I like it. Lots of it is nicked from the new Sportage, including the nice touchscreen infotainment system, and you've got the little bank of buttons here which flicks between climate controls, shortcuts, climate controls, shortcuts. You've got USB-A, you've got a USB-C, you've got a wireless charger in the gloomy depths down there, don't know if you can see it, which charges at 15 watts, which is up from 5 watts in the old car. All the buttons down here, very logically laid out. You've got your heated seat, your cooled seat, etc., and your gear selector. Now, if I darken you back down a bit, let's look at the steering wheel. It's a nice two-spoke thing. It's got vegan leather on it because this is a top spec 4-trim car. We'll get onto the seats in a minute. But you can just press this button here to turn the lane keep assist off. There's no faffing around. Digital dashboard isn't standard in the entry-level 2 one. You get a much smaller digital bit in that, but I like it. I would have it. Yeah, it's just a really well thought out cabin. Lots of nice features, lots of high-tech fiddling and infotainment system, which I do like. You do have to plug in for Apple CarPlay and Android Auto though, which is a crime punishable by death. But yeah, vegan seats on the 4 version. They are made of some part of a eucalyptus tree, and they feel really nice. They feel like leather as well. Hopefully they put the koalas somewhere else when they ground up the trees, because otherwise they wouldn't be very vegan. But anyway, less waffle about that. Let's check out the back seat space. I am a 6'3" adult, arguable I'm an adult, but anyway, I fit in the back of this pretty well. I've got headroom. It's quite nice. The seat back is leant back a bit, so you can actually get some comfort in here. I've got knee room. However, if I was taller, I wouldn't want my knees to bash into that, because that is rock hard plastic and it ain't very nice. However, Kia does make a point of how there is more knee room in this car because they put thinner seats in, which is interesting, he says, bear with me, because these seats have actually got USB-C slots on the side, so your passengers can charge their devices. You've got a little flap for holding your AA roadmap from 1998. You've got a flat floor here, so your middle passenger doesn't get a short straw there. And there's a middle seat, obviously. Cup holders there. And that is pretty much it, with the exception of the fact that the front headrests do look like that droid from one of the recent Star Wars films. At BB-8? No, that's the bull. The other one, the sarcastic one. Yes, you know what I mean. But anyway, enough about that. Let's go back up front and take this for a drive, and then I'm going to do a bit on driving the PHEV and the HEV to see what the difference is. Well, hello and welcome to Tim Roadie Gets Wet setting up GoPros. We're in the new Niro, the EV version. Let's go for a drive in some very wet hills above Frankfurt. Now, Kia says it's done a lot of work in this car to improve the acoustics, and I have to say I've just done a bit of an autobahn blast to get up here, and I hit this car's top speed, which is 175 kilometers an hour, and just sat there for a minute or two watching the battery crying. And you only get wind noise on the mirrors above 100 miles an hour. And how often are you driving your EV
above 100 miles an hour. Not very often. You can probably hear the rain, there's not much you can do about that. But some of the things they've done to reduce the noise in the cabin of this car include sorting out its noise-making orifices. At least that's what the press pack says. And they've also stiffened its member. That doesn't usually make me quieter, but anyway, it is absolutely hammering it down. You probably want to know if this feels like a big leaden EV. And the good news is, even over those slow down bumps, it doesn't. It's got really nice, supple suspension. I've been driving it around town as well. It was some horrible broken roads with potholes, manhole covers, children, all these things that you normally drive over. And it just doesn't get flustered. It doesn't feel heavy. It feels modern. It feels like it's been designed from the ground up as an EV, funnily enough. Yeah, it's not sporty to drive. It's not outrageously quick. 0 to 60 in the electric one is 7.8 seconds, and it's actually got something like 150 newton meters of torque less than the previous Niro EV. But yeah, it still feels quick, and it piles up to that 175 kilometer per hour top speed, gone Cornish or something, really quickly. So yeah, and when you put your foot down, you get that characteristic EV shove. It's not like a dual motor Tesla, it's just a nice amount of acceleration, probably exactly the same amount of acceleration as the previous one. But yeah, to actually drive as a car, it feels pretty good. Visibility out all round is reasonably good. You've got quite thick C-pillars at the back of the car, but it's got radars on the back corners, and it warns you in a head-up display when there's cars coming up behind you on the motorway. It is covered in clever technology. As I said, loads of radars, loads of cameras. You can turn the lane keep assist off with holding a button on the steering wheel, like in most other Kias. And yeah, it's just easy. It's like easy cars to drive. And this is right up there with the best of them in terms of easiness. Now, all the safety stuff is next level in this car. It's got stuff that will stop your rear passengers opening their doors if there's a cyclist or a car coming up behind you. It will use the child locks to do that. It's got all sorts of stuff. The cruise control can work out, when there's bends coming up, all that kind of jazz as well, and adjust its speed. If you hold the auto hold button, that's for the handbrake, so when you take your foot off the brake in traffic, it doesn't move. If you hold that for 3 seconds, let's try this. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, it turns on a brake disc cleaning function. Kia has realised, with their knowledge of EVs, that brake discs sometimes get a bit rusty on EVs because they tend to use the motors to slow down rather than the physical brake discs, so it doesn't rub all the rust off them. But if you hold that button, it puts it in a mode where below a certain speed it will not give you regeneration, and you'll have to use the physical brakes to slow the car down to clean your brake discs of rust. They've thought of stuff. Now, you might be wondering what the paddles are for, considering this is the electric version of the new Niro, and that is to adjust the levels of recuperation you get when you lift off the accelerator. So at the moment, I've got it completely off, so if I lift off the accelerator, it just coasts along. If you pull the left one, I lift off, there we go, I'm slowing down a bit more. I'm gonna click it again a bit more, and then if you click it twice more, you get I-pedal mode, and it says I-pedal on. I-pedal is Kia's name for one pedal driving. So if I lift off the accelerator, it will brake reasonably hard down to a stop. So you can use it to time coming up to level crossings and traffic lights and things like that to come to a stop. It's a little game you can play to make your life a bit more fun. But yeah, in short, the EV version of this rides really nicely, drives really nicely. It is not sporty, it's not as fast as you might think, but it's pretty nippy, I would describe it. It doesn't roll in corners, feels good. I'm going to cut to me driving the plug-in hybrid version and the self-charging hybrid version in a minute, and I think I'm going to get annoyed because I'm going from the silence, the seamlessness of an electric motor to having a dirty petrol engine helping out as well. So let's get to that now. Right, I'm now in the Niro PHEV, which means, if you're paying attention earlier, that I've got a 1.6 litre petrol engine and 80 electric horses for a total of 180 horsepowers, and I can do 40 miles on a charge. Now, PHEV has some negatives, as I've said, compared to the rest of the Niro range. The boot is smaller, and in my experience as well, because this is the same PHEV system as the new Sportage, your combined full petrol, full electric range isn't actually as big as in just the regular hybrid version. So it's just something to pay attention to. This one says I've got 657 kilometers of range with a full tank of petrol and just over 3/4 of a charge. So what's that in miles? Editing Tim put that in. Like in the EV, I've got paddles to adjust the regeneration of the motor, and as I said, this will turn its engine off when you're outside schools and things like that to stop you killing other children with your tailpipe emissions, although I don't think they're especially dirty, being a modern petrol engine. But yeah, let's get some bumpier bits of road and find out if the weight of those PHEV batteries, the 11.1 kilowatt hour battery, harms the ride. And there's a really bumpy bit of road down here, so it's excellent. I'm going to aim for every manhole cover. But to be honest, so far this feels the same as the electric one, except I've not got the instant acceleration. Well, this is good. I was about to get onto the Autobahn and tell you how noisy or otherwise the petrol engine is when it kicks in this plug-in hybrid, but it's raining so hard I can't hear my two brain cells talking to each other. Okay, the rain has abated a little bit, and I can tell you that like the Sportage PHEV, this new Niro PHEV can sit at 70 miles an hour in electric only mode. You hear that? When the rain stops, there's no noise. So you do get to live a little slice of proper EV life. It's not like old plug-in hybrids where above about 2 miles an hour you've got the engine kicking in. This makes a decent fist of being a proper EV. De-restricted, let's boot it. Yeah, that 1.6 engine, it does provide extra useful propulsion, and it doesn't sound too coarse either. It actually sounds reasonably smooth. And Kia, I think, has done a good job at the sound deadening to make it more removed. One thing I should say is the PHEV, the ride actually feels just as good as in the EV, so there doesn't really feel much difference between this and the full EV, which is a good thing, right? This new Niro does lose marks for having quite a noisy rear window wiper. Kia Niro diaries, captain's log, lol. The brakes. I haven't talked about the brakes because you don't notice them. They just feel normal. There's none of that weird grabbiness that you get when it switches between using the regenerative brakes and the physical brakes. Hello again, dear viewers. You join me this time in the Niro HEV, the heavy, the HEV, the self-charging hybrid version of the Niro, the more affordable version of this car. Starts at £28,000, but this is kind of a higher spec version. So yeah, it feels the same as the PHEV and the EV. Either my buttocks aren't sensitive enough to really notice any difference in the ride between the three Niro models, but they all just feel comfortable. They all feel quiet. They all just work. So yeah, what an anticlimax. Now, when you put your foot down this, the revs do climb probably quicker than the PHEV because it's got less oomph on the electric side of things to help you out. So the petrol engine has to do more of the heavy lifting more of the time, but I don't know, in a way it feels a bit more like a normal car to drive, and you're not really ever massively aware of the electric power helping you out. You can't press a button to run it in pure EV mode like you can in the PHEV, but you still got some electric oomph. You get some extra torque from the electric motor. So yeah, if you're happy using the petrol engine more of the time and you want more boot space than the PHEV, think of this hybrid version of the Niro as the default version. The version you buy if you're not fully ready for electric life. Maybe you can't charge at home, maybe you can't charge at work, but you still want a spacious family, sort of not sort of SUV sort of thing. Sort of. Anyway, I'm going to go and do some twisty country roads. Probably won't film it because it's not very interesting. It's just for my amusement while I pick bits of my beef lunch out of my teeth. Anyway, after that we'll do an outro. So see you in a minute. Actually, I should just point out one of the safety features of the new Niro. I indicated left to change lane. There was a car just going past me. I knew that. I just indicated a bit early. And it vibrated the steering wheel like crazy and beeped as if to say, don't move or you'll die. So that's good. I like a vibrating rim, me. Oh. Vibrating rim or ring? Which is worse? I don't know. Outro, click the outro, Tim. So I've come to the end of my day driving the three versions of the new Kia Niro. What do I think of it? Well, it is a very, very good small SUV-ish, not quite SUV
thing. It's very comfortable. It's another good modern Kia. I wish they would do something a bit more interesting and give us a real crap car, but this isn't it, I'm afraid. The hybrid version is just a good default option. It's quite affordable for what it is, and then there's the plug-in above that, which is also very good. Has a slightly small boot, and again, 40 miles on electric power is decent. Does that meet your needs? I don't know. You tell me whether that's good enough for you. Likewise, the electric version, 275 miles. I say that's quite good in a car this size. It's very comfortable, the suspension is good, the interior is decent, high quality, the infotainment's all there, and it's got all the tech of the latest Sportage, which, as we know, is a very good car. So yeah, sadly it's slightly boring because Kia's done it again. They've done another good car. Just all depends on whether you can live with the looks and whether you like the slightly low rent Audi R8 side blade. But I don't know, I don't mind it, to be honest. But anyway, hopefully this has been helpful in your decision if you're in the market for a new Niro. Let us know in the comments if you're going to buy one, or if you've ordered one, or if you want to go and buy a Lamborghini instead. I've been Tim. Go down to the comments and call me the Korean word for a chair, and I'll see you next time. Oh, don't forget to subscribe as well. Goodbye.